Hi, I'm Robin Starr. I'm the director of the American and European Works of Art department at Skinner's. Today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about pop art, which is one of my favorite periods. Pop art is art that uses images from popular culture and integrates them into fine art. Pop art came about during the New York art scene of the late 1950s and early 1960s. Now, in part, pop art, believe it or not, was a reaction against the more prevalent form of the day, and that was abstract expressionism. After World War II, artists of the abstract expressionist movement decided that it was elitist to have the representational art that had dominated art history up until that point. In order to understand those objects, you had to have a knowledge of religious iconography, classical mythology, world history, and world literature. And so going to view major works of art required a very high level of sophistication and education. Their answer to that was to make art that was about color, composition, gesture. And the idea was supposed to be that this would be much more accessible because it didn't require a certain level of education. For better or for worse, a lot of viewers actually found this more intimidating because they had no place to begin. The narrative was lost. There was no place to start to understand what was being shown to them. Pop art is an answer to this. Pop art takes images that everybody of the day is going to recognize. It's borrowing images from the ubiquitous print advertising, television shows, and movie industry of the early 1960s. Using these sorts of images, artists were able to create works of art that were very accessible, but they were also able to comment on the culture of the day. We have a strong group of pop art prints in our upcoming sale, and print media are a terrific source for pop art because, of course, pop is coming from those multiple images that are seen over and over again. So print media, which are inherently multiples, make an obvious meld for pop art. Included in the sale are several works by Roy Lichtenstein. Now, if you remember squirreling away with a comic book up into the tree fort in the backyard as a kid, or you remember sitting in a chair with your dad on Sunday mornings to read the funnies, you're familiar with the visual iconography of comic book art. And that's exactly what Roy Lichtenstein uses. In his print from 1992, called The Oval Office, he uses those heavy black outlines and those small dots called Ben-Day dots to create his imagery. In some of his earlier images, including figures, he even includes thought bubbles and speech balloons. Here we see an image of an empty Oval Office, because I wouldn't dream of getting political on you. And it was created for a whole group of Democratic elections that were coming up in 1992. But here we have that comic book visual vocabulary. We also have a work by Andy Warhol. Now, Andy Warhol took images of mundane, everyday objects and images of celebrities to create his works. When you think of Andy Warhol, you probably think first and foremost of his Campbell's soup cans. Talk about something that we wouldn't expect to see as a major star in a work of art. But he also did images of people like Marilyn and Jackie and Elvis and Mao. People who were so much a part of the cult of personality that they only had to be referred to by their first names, and everybody knew who everyone meant. Our particular Mao in this sale was actually published in 1974, and it was published as a poster for an exhibition, but also done in a non-poster edition, which is what we have. And just to put a funny twist on it and to refer back to pop culture and popular mundane objects, it's actually printed on wallpaper. Some artists, such as Jasper Johns and Robert Indiana, who are both represented in this sale, like to incorporate text into their art. Jasper Johns liked to use flat objects in particular. This did two things. First and foremost, incorporating flat objects onto a two-dimensional image meant that you didn't have to deal with the three-dimensional. But it also meant that one could argue it was actually more realistic than trying to create the illusion of putting three-dimensional onto two-dimensional. When you see the word red in a Jasper Johns, it is the actual word red. It's not a representation of a word. It is an actual word. Similarly, artists like Robert Indiana also like to incorporate text into their pieces. And possibly one of the most famous images of the 1960s is his image of love. I can't think of a better spot to end than with love. So thanks so much for watching.